Gracious God, I pray not only for this meeting tonight, I pray for each one of these commissioners, each one who serves in our county and city. I pray for them and their families. May your blessings be upon them. Lord, may all of our citizens appreciate the effort, the struggles, the time that they put in, and the difficulty of their situations. Guide and direct them tonight that every decision they make will be for the good of this whole county as we work together as one. In Christ's name, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Miller.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Miller, for taking time to pray with us. Before I ask for, hold on, Mr. Bullock. Before I ask for approval of agenda, I want Mr. Martin to give us an update on Governor Cooper's COVID mask free.
Yes, sir.
If you would, please.
I'll be glad to. The governor's executive order basically did away with the social distancing requirements indoors and outdoors. And basically, so the face covering requirement was lifted. The capacity restriction has been lifted well in all settings. The CDC has advised that face coverings should continue to be required in healthcare settings and transportation settings, like, so that may, for instance, maybe the health department and the FARPs in terms of county services, as well as correctional and detention facilities. So, for instance, with the county jail, face coverings will still need to be used. So, in terms of county operations, Mr. Chairman, those are a couple of the main changes.
So, before I forget, Dr. Ophiel Mungoins and Mr. Arthur Bullock are on the Zoom call tonight. So the only place that's mandatory for face masks in Bladen County government is the health department, parks, and correctional facilities. Other than that, it's mask free. If you want to wear a mask, you can wear it, but it's not mandatory. Mr. Bullock, do you have a question?
Yes, sir. On item 1D on the agenda, I'd like to add that we have a closed session under item 16.
What is your closed sessions in reference to?
Personnel question.
That is not a closed session item.
I can speak perfectly then. I don't have a problem with that.
Well, it's not a closed session item. You want to add it 16A, I'll be glad to add it if it's approved by this board.
Okay.
But it's not a...
This comment, any comments on 16? I'll be okay.
Okay, when 16 comes, you can give your comments. Any,
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent item, agenda.
Motion to approve, second.
Oh, okay. I can't do that. I've got the motion second. Now I got the vote. Rodney, Kim, make a motion.
Mr. Peterson.
Yes.
Mr. Gillespie.
Yes.
Mr. Britt.
Yes.
Mr. Cogdell.
Yes.
Dr. Ellis.
Yes.
Mr. Hester.
Yes.
Mr. McGill.
Yes.
Dr. Mungoins.
Yes.
Mr. Bullock.
Yes.
Thank you. Individual delegation wish to address commissioners? Okay. Matters of interest to commissioner, anyone have anything?
Mr. Chairman,
Every time I go in.
Mr. Gillespie's got the floor, then you'll be next, Doctor.
A couple of citizens doing the water outage the other week here. The Melvins across there, Linda and Mike Melvin, they said they want to thank the commissioners for thinking about it with the water that was delivered to them. They really appreciate it. And Mr. Paul Skinner said that the Beaver program would definitely work for him. And he said money well spent by the commission.
Dr. Ophiel Mungoins?
I'd just like to thank Ms. Edwards, Mr. Martin, and those who responded to the concerns about the quality air in the DMV building. And I think the citizens are really pleased because they know that it wasn't and the result, and they're in a very clean environment. So I'd like to say thanks to all of them.
Mr. Bullock, you want to discuss your item here?
I'll do it at the end, sir.
Chairman, I was gonna wait to the end but I'll go ahead in light of the new discussion that might take place. I won't be here at our next meeting to apologize for my absence, so I'll do that in advance. I take this commitment very seriously. I was in Los Angeles about 10 hours ago. I managed to get back here, but it would be at an event in Iowa. And I know that's an important meeting with the budget discussion, so I apologize. And I will not make that happen. Thank you.
Okay, item 5 is special recognition. If y'all want to do like we used to and gather right there. Miss Wanda C. Wilson. Boss lady up here.
So a lot of things happened in 1991. Operation Desert Storm, the New York Giants beat the Buffalo Bills in the Super Bowl. Silence of the Lamb was the #1 movie of the year. They say that the first website, the internet, was that year, as well as the first copier scanner in color. But on April the 8th of 1991, one of the greatest things in the county happened. And that was the day that Miss Wanda Wilson came to work for us in the WIC program. And since that time, she has worked in several different positions, getting an increase in 1994, and again later that year, the processing assistant 3. I'm sad to say, but glad for her, that on April the 30th of 2021, Wanda Wilson is able to retire after giving so much of herself, her dedication, and her passion to public health. Wanda, we thank you.
This one, stand up, come up.
My husband, my son, and my cousins.
Come on in, Derek. So in grateful appreciation to Wanda C. Wilson for dedicated service to the people of Bladen County as processing assistant 3, presented by the Bladen County Board of Commissioners, given the 17th day of May, 2021, years of service, April 1991 through April 2021. Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am.
Enjoy your retirement. 30 days, you come back.
Mr. Rodney? You want the preacher to come up?
My hands on.
You're doing good.
Sure.
Well, Rodney Ward, everybody knows him. He came to work here in 1985 in the county. I think he worked a short time with Bladen Police Department before that. I came in 2014. I taught Rodney coming back part-time for about 2 weeks. He was part-time. And then he came back full-time at my request. He has done a lot of things for a lot of people in this county. And I'll tell you, he would be greatly missed by the sheriff's office. and the citizens of this county, and I can never, ever repay Rodney for what he's done for me personally. God bless you, my friend.
And grateful appreciation to Rodney D. Warwick for dedicated service to Big Bladen County as lieutenant, presented by the Bladen County Board of Commissioners, released 17th day of May 2021, 24 years of service. Rodney, thank you very Anybody else? EMS Week recognition. Whereas emergency medical service is a vital public service, and whereas members of the emergency medical service teams are ready to provide life-saving care to those in need 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Whereas access to quality emergency care drastically improves the survival and recovery rate of those who experience sudden illness or injuries. And whereas emergency medical service has grown to fill a gap by providing important out-of-hospital care, including preventative medicine, follow-up care, and access to telemedicine. Whereas the emergency medical service system consists of first responders, emergency medical technicians, paramedics, emergency medical dispatchers, firefighters, police, officers, educators, administrators, pre-hospital nurse, emergency physicians, trained members of the public, and other out-of-the-hospital medical care providers. And the members of the emergency medical service team, whether career or volunteer, engage in thousands of hours of specialized training and continued education to enhance their life-saving skills. Whereas it is appropriate to recognize the value of this accomplishment of the emergency medical service provided by designated Emergency Medical Service Week. Now therefore, be it proclaimed that the Bladen County Board of Commissioners has designated the week of May 16th through 22, 2021 as Emergency Medical Service Week. With the EMS strong theme, this is EMS, caring for our communities. The board encourages the community to observe this week with appropriate programs, ceremonies, and activities. David, on behalf of the Bladen County Commissioners, thank you for everything you do and your time. Yes, sir. And please
Yes, kind of ironic that it's talked about caring for our communities, considering everything that's going on with COVID in the past year. We formed a lot of good partnerships with local health that we normally didn't have in the past. I just ask everybody tonight, when you think about EMS Week, also say a prayer for those heroes that were lost fighting COVID. EMS, nurses, doctors, they're out there across our nation tonight. And I want the county to realize and understand that we're always here to support our community in any way we can as far as emergency medical response. Thank you.
So I entertain a motion to go on order, board. Second.
Second.
Mr. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Gillespie?
Yes.
Mr. Britt?
Yes.
Mr. Cogdell?
Yes.
Dr. Ellis?
Yes.
Mr. Hester?
Yes.
Mr. McGill?
Yes.
Dr. Mungolan?
Yes,
Mr. Bullock?
Yes.
So, Mr. McCleary, before you start, let me just say, on behalf of the Board of Commissioners, and I'm sure they'll thank you too, we want to reach out and thank you so much for the work your team did on that water leak and stuff.
I'd like to extend that.
That's
Key player in this situation. In fact, he went above and beyond.
Yep, I'm good. Okay.
And many of you know what happened last Friday, May 7th, that we had water outage up in the White Lake community. Let's see if I can make this thing work the way we want it to work.
Here comes Jeff.
Here comes Jeff. Well, we all know we had a hailstorm up in that area. And immediately following that, we started getting phone calls in that neighborhood that told us that people were suffering issues of low water pressure and some without water. At that time, Alan dispatched his entire team up into that area to begin investigating the problem. First weeks, we went to the well sites. With the lightning strikes in the area, that's always a potential. If the well takes a hit, it immediately knocks it out. Could be damage to the motor, could be damage to the controls, could be just a complete power outage at a well. So after it was ruled out that that was not the problem, the crews began searching for relief. And while they were doing that, you can go ahead, the area affected continued to expand. We went from an area right around Willard Tatum Road, 242, to we were getting on up into now the White Lake, White Lake, and thank you. And he pulled off there for a night too, because we didn't have access to the internet here a few minutes ago, and he's been able to make that happen. So, but anyway, as the area began to expand, we began to realize we had much more of a problem. Just for your information, this was taken by someone working for us during the travel up there. 2 inches of snow and ice, or 2 inches of hail, which looked like snow and ice for us, on the roads up there. That within itself complicated the problem, and that's what I wanted to share with you tonight. Once that started to melt with all the rain that was going on too, ditches began to fill up, which if you're looking for a leak along the roadside, you look for water bubbling out of the shoulders or in the ditch. And we weren't able until sometime Sunday morning to see dry ditches up there, which helped us then identify the problem. But as we began to narrow in on the situation, we began to realize that we likely could have had a creek crossing break under Turnbull Creek. And the reason we thought this, Turnbull Creek has an 8-inch water main that goes underneath it, along the embankment, down below the embankment of the roadside through there, the bridges. And there was no way to identify. Several times we went to this creek looking for water bubbling up, and a couple of times thought we had it. So the decision was made by Saturday afternoon that we needed to isolate Turnbull Creek, and that was going to cost us to do that. In talking with Mr. Martin, the decision was made to go ahead and hire a contractor to come in and let's isolate that creek. What that allowed us to do, though, was turn the water back on in the Willard Tatum area and get those people back in service. Once we figured out that we could isolate 701 south of Turnbull, then the Willard Tatum area could start getting water again. But that also pushed us, and I'll go back one, that also pushed us into recognizing that the break then was north of Turnbull, somewhere between there and White Lake Well, which allowed us then to go from around 800 customers down to about 100 to 150 customers. So we zoned back in and started searching more intensely for that problem. And as we proceeded on into Sunday morning, we were still searching, testing the wells. This was Saturday evening. The contractors rolled in here about 8 p.m. This was a sub of Harry Rivenbark, who's currently out there doing our water district 4 construction for us right now. They rolled in on the scene with 2 8-inch valves, and materials to hook it up, and by 11 p.m. they had us 2 valves installed, and we were able to shut that thing down and isolate that area across that creek. Crew worked together really well. But then that led us back to Allen on Sunday in the early afternoon. We went back to this area to double check this valve because we still couldn't find water coming out of the ground anywhere when he noticed right along that ditch line, water was starting to seep out of the embankment. He called me. He said, I think we've got it. But I want to make one thing perfectly clear here. This is a sand hill. So it took us pumping nearly 2 million gallons of water in that area before it ever began to surface or show up. It was seeping into the soil and filling that hill with water until it got so saturated that it began to bleed out. Then we had to take out a large tree right in that area. We're in that DOT right of way, right along about where that blue dot shows, off-road, way off-road. In fact, there's trees between our water line and the roadway in there, so you couldn't see it. So then a large tree had to be taken out. I contacted a contractor who's got the equipment and the crew. They mobilized and we're on scene by 5 p.m. on Sunday. This is Mother's Day now. One of the things I hated seeing us to go through was Mother's Day with no water in people's homes. I thank Mr. Martin and the team that rolled out. That was Mr. Martin and Nathan and Kenneth Clark and Vijay helped deliver water to all those citizens along that 100 and some home area right along north of Turnbull up to White Lake Well and get those people some drinking water to make it through the evening. That occurred Saturday afternoon. Then Sunday, the repair was finally done and completed. And what had happened, lightning had struck this huge gum tree right near this water line and blew the line into underground. It splintered the line. So we pumped about 2 million gallons of water into that hillside, and as you can see here, there's very little water showing. But this is sand material as far down as you want to dig, because it's on the north rim of Turnbull Creek. Crew got line repaired. This is some of those guys doing that work, putting it back together. And Alan and his team mobilized in and got water back on to those customers by about 7 p.m. So we went from Friday afternoon until Sunday at 7 p.m. before everybody got the service restored. For the last few homes in that area that were affected were around, 15 right there at the last Alan. Took about 3 hours from the time those were isolated until we got this repaired. Hopefully, we won't have anything this major hit us again. It was a lot of work over the weekend for Alan and his team and all who helped contribute, but just wanted you guys to see the crews out there and they're working hard, and we appreciate all they do. Thank you. Any questions?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Bullock. Yes,
I
sir.
just wanted to ask a question. In the future, could you all share the screens with us that are online? Will you have a presentation?
Yes, sir, we try. It's in the agenda. It's actually in the details of your agenda package. They're in there.
I didn't see the presentation.
Click on the PDF that's attached to the agenda for this line item, and it'll show. Yep, under board docs.
Anyone, any comments?
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. Don't forget to do that. All right, thank you, sir.
So, Mr. Martin, will you, I know it's something very small, but, will you order this thing a lunch and tell them to enjoy it? Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much. Entertain a motion to come out of order, board. Mr. Britt, second, Mr. Cameron. Mr. Britt. Yes.
I'll second.
Mr. Gillespie?
Yes.
Mr. Britt?
Yes.
Mr. Cogdale?
Yes.
Dr. Ellis?
Yes.
Mr. Hester?
Yes.
Mr. McGill?
Yes.
Dr. Mungowens?
Yes,
Mr. Bullock?
Yes.
Thank you again, John.
Thank you.
Pass it on to you, too. Item 7, Mr. Nate Davis, update regarding reval.
Good evening. I'm here tonight just to give you an update for the 2022 evaluation. As stated in the previous update, all property records and GIS maps have been printed. All properties have been routed for field work. Approximately 60% of the field work has been completed and photographs have been taken. Field visits continue to be in progress. Data entry is in the process of being completed on properties that the field work is complete. The revaluation team is in receipt of the 2020 sales and continues to utilize these sales to develop a schedule of values to reflect the current market. The final review of property values should begin by September. And hopefully by the end of the year we'll have the schedule values and that kind of information for y'all. Is there any questions or anything you want to, any comments? All right, you're welcome.
Emergency Service, Mr. David Howe, update regarding our recent joint training exercise.
We had an opportunity, about 4 weeks ago, after Bladen Community College reached out to me to have a capstone program for the curriculum paramedic students. So after working with Mr. James Green at the college, it presented itself as a good opportunity to exercise the EMS system and to help the county college also, this paramedic class, into meeting the objectives they needed and the goals as far as finishing the program. So what we did, we coordinated and worked out an exercise to where we could exercise the EMS system, where I could evaluate some of the areas as far as triage and incident command, something we haven't been able to do due to COVID-19 kind of restricting training. So what we did, we worked out a scenario where the auditorium had a gas line explosion. We had 12 to 13 patients. We partnered with the local hospital. This gave them an opportunity to have an exercise to meet JCO requirements for them. It gave them the opportunity to kind of work their triage incident command system within the hospital. It was a win-win for all of us. So what we did, we started the exercise that morning, had 13 patients that were moulaged up. We involved air methods, which we flew one of the patients from BCC to New Hanover, simulated engine failure, landed at the hospital, the patient was brought in. It gave us the opportunity again to look at some of our areas we need to work on as far as triage and mass casualty incident command. But overall, it was a good joint venture between Bladen County Hospital, Bladen Community College, Bladen EMS, and emergency management to facilitate this training. So the SAMHSA grant that we got back last year helped pay for the cost for this, which we have applied for a second continuation of this grant. We don't know if we're going to get it or not. But this gave us the opportunity to exercise those funds where we normally would not have had those funds to do this massive type of training. So to enhance our providers' skills, we're looking at in June doing another real-world exercise, basically on June 15th and June 17th, where we're going to try to work with our fire departments that are at the basic EMT level to get them some skills training involved, working with the EMS system. So that's, again, facilitated with SAMHSA funding.
Any questions, comments? Thank you, Mr. Powell. You know, there's a lot of training and recertification y'all have to do inside of doing the job, so thank you. Ms. Lisa?
Good evening to each of you. I'd like to share the dashboard with you through the end of April, 83% of the year. The revenues for general fund were at 86.49%. The expenditures were 78.57%. Solid waste revenues were 97.52%, and expenditures were 76.93%. Emergency telephone revenues were 34.02%, and expenditures were 17.97%. And the water district, we were 84% in revenues and 49% in expenditures. Any questions on the dashboard before I go into the federal? Federal money, through the end of April, we have a net of $397,419.22. So if we stay on the same track as what our projections are, we'll have $517,000 to the good at the end of the year from the federal money. Any questions on that? If not, I'll continue on with the American Rescue Plan. We found out last week the county is going to receive $6,355,865. The first part of money should come in any time. We thought it was going to be around the 11th, but they had asked for blood last week and it had to come from me, so I had to give them a lot of information for them to know who I was and make sure it was legit before they would even give us the money, so then I had to request it. But after that was done, we should be receiving about $3.1 million of that money now, and then a year later we'll get another 3.1. We'll get the balance of it at the same time. This money can be used to support the urgent COVID-19 response efforts to continue the decreased spread of the virus and bring the pandemic under control, to replace lost public sector revenue, to strengthen support for vital public services and help retain jobs, to support immediate economic stabilization for households and businesses, and to address systematic public health and economic challenges that have contributed to the equality impact of the pandemic on certain populations. With all that being said, there's a 150-page document. They're saying from 130 to 150 is what we need to focus on. I've read through parts of it, and it's one of those things that you read it and you highlight and you understand part of it, but then you go back and you see something else. So it's still a working document, and this is just an interim document. There's several things that's in this document that tells us how we can spend the money. We did present it to the division managers this morning to ask for their help and to identifying items that they can spend it on. Like on the public support for the response for the public health, there's things on there like ventilation improvements, there's capital investments in the public, and Terry has a project right now at the health department that we're thinking we might be able to use this for to help with a negative pressure room or capital, trying to restructure a way for in and out for the public to, entrance 1 and entrance 2 or out, that type of stuff. The testing, the contract tracing, she told us this morning that she's lost her tracer, so that might be something we could be able to do with that money as well. The second thing that was addressing the economic impact, the negative economic impact, that would be like delivering assistance to workers and families, supporting small businesses, rebuilding public sector capacity. There's things of that nature we can do, help with tourism, travel, and hospitality. Then the third category was serving the hardest hit communities, so addressing health disparities, investing in housing in the neighborhoods, addressing in educational disparities, promoting healthy childhood environments. The list goes on and on. Replacing lost public sector revenue is the one that really disappointed me. I was hoping that we would be able to pinpoint it to a particular item in our budget, but you have to look at the budget as a whole and not just for one particular line item. And so when I shared that with Greg, we were hoping we could use it, but it didn't work out for the county on that point. It's something they said that we can look at in the year at the next year, because we still have another year that we can check and see how it plays out as far as the revenues go. So we can invest it in water and sewer infrastructure, broadband, ineligible uses. Let me just tell you what these are so you'll be aware of it. We cannot deposit this into a pension fund, and you cannot directly or indirectly offset tax revenue to use this money for. So that's kind of in a nutshell. If y'all have questions, I'll be glad to share these documents with you so you can
That's what I was going to ask.
you can sweat as much as I can.
Especially that 20 pages that you're referencing.
I'll be glad to.
Because I know, if we're.
Because you'll probably be asked about.
So, Mr. Martin, help me if I'm wrong. So what I think is going to happen, in the conversation you and I have had, is he's going to get the directors just to do like a wish list. And then the commissioners maybe do their wish list. And then this board will decide where that money goes. So there's going to be some wish lists there. So is that pretty accurate?
Yes, sir.
Is it to be proportionate, not percentage-wise, is how, whether discretion we want to use, you don't have to be a certain amount allocated this, that.
And the towns are getting their own pot, so we don't even have to share this with the towns.
So at some point, we might create guidelines, commissioners can follow, so it can be fair and equal with everybody, but that's a little bit down the road.
And you will find the form that was on the website that I had to complete and had to approve, because they only let one person go into the portal from the county, so. Unfortunately, I was the one that had to give my blood. So.
This is one I wanted to ask.
Sure.
Municipalities are getting money, like East Decatur, Bladen County.
Yes, sir.
If you are residents in that community, how does that affect us with how we disperse funds? How does
That will be left up to the board how they want to disperse it as far as following the guidelines.
Because if I got a Elizabethtown address, can I get money from Elizabethtown and from the county? Who do I get it from? If you have to stay in that municipality, if you're in the municipality, you can't get it.
I don't think this board of commissioners gonna give you money twice.
Well, I'm just asking them, how does that, is it in the stipulations on that as to?
It would be, I mean, my understanding is it would be up to each respective board, whether or not they have a program.
That's what I'm saying, like if I had something, right now I stay at the edge of Elizabethtown, the EJT or whatever you call it, and then I'm a county resident, am I eligible from both places or one?
If you live in each EJT, would be a resident.
So I mean, so if you're not in the city boundaries, then we won't arrest anybody that needs this in the city boundaries, that's what I'm asking.
I don't know, I mean, that would all be part of the discussion.
That'll be the decision of this board.
Okay, that's what I was trying to figure out, how would that work? If you, Bladenberry, somebody Bladenberry, they get money, or if you're in the towns, how would they do the money? Disperse the money.
Got more to come.
We'll send out the information to you, so you can do it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for going on that. Health Department, Dr. Terry Duncan.
First item is to consider approving the NAVEX Global Master Service Agreement for Policy Tech. The setup and subscription is a policy management system needed for accreditation purposes and to help us keep all of our policies and procedures up to date.
Motion by Mr. Brett, second by Mr. Cameron McGill. Any discussion? Ms. Marie?
Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Gillespie?
Yes.
Mr. Britt?
Yes.
Mr. Cogdale?
Yes.
Dr. Ellis?
Yes.
Mr. Hester?
Yes.
Mr. McGill?
Yes.
Dr. Mungowens?
Yes.
Mr. Bullock?
Yes.
Next one is consider approval of the field site affiliation agreement with Walden University. Again, this is for nurse practitioner students, and we actually have one of our own, Tiffany Tate, that's involved in Walden University.
Motion to approve. Second.
Motion by Mr. Cogdale, second by Mr. Hester. Any discussion? Ms. Marie?
Mr. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Gillespie?
Yes.
Mr. Britt?
Yes.
Mr. Cogdale?
Yes.
Dr. Ellis?
Yes.
Mr. Hester?
Yes.
Mr. McGill?
Yes.
Dr. Mungowens?
Yes.
Mr. Bullock?
Yes.
C is approving a letter of agreement with Bladen County Schools. This is for the school nurses and what a phenomenal job they have done during COVID and during their normal times.
Mr. Gillespie made a motion to approve, second by
My second.
Mr. Britt. Any discussion?
How many school nurses are there?
6.
Ms. Marie?
Mr. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Gillespie?
Yes.
Mr. Britt?
Yes.
Mr. Cogdale?
Yes.
Dr. Ellis?
Yes.
Mr. Hester?
Yes.
Mr. McGill?
Yes.
Dr. Mungowens?
Yes.
Mr. Bullock?
Yes.
Mr. Duncan?
And then lastly, the COVID-19 update, the vaccination process. As you know, we can see the light at the end of the tunnel, and it is shining brightly today. We're still facing a little bit of it, but so much better than we were. When we met last time, we have had one death since I've seen you last. But as of today, there were 991,956 positive cases since the beginning in North Carolina, with 12,891 deaths. When I left, about 4:30 today, they have not updated the recovered in North Carolina, but as of last Monday, it was 950,929. Today, there was 815 in the hospital. That's a lot, but it's not near what it was close to the 2,000 mark. And today, the positivity in North Carolina was 4.7%. For Bladen County, today we're at the 3,280 mark with 38 active. Remember, we were up around the 400 mark in February. With 42 deaths, 3,200 recovered, 2 currently hospitalized, and a 5.2% positivity. So we are well on our way. As of Last Tuesday, we had performed approximately 28,800, almost 900 tests in Bladen County residents. We have, of those positives, the 25 to 49 age group continues to be the leader at 37.3%, followed by the 50 to 64 with 21.9%. And then the 18 to 24 at 11.8, not significantly a difference in those numbers. The 75 plus age group as well as the 65, 75 was at 5.3% and 65 and older was at 10.9%. The vaccines are working. Not near as many positives there. To date, we have vaccinated over 9,000 residents of Bladen County. 9,257 as of today's report have received at least one vaccine. Fully vaccinated, 8,502. That gives us a 28.3% of a first-time dose and a 26% of a second dose. You take out those, a little bit of those 12 and unders and so forth, we're more approaching the 34%, at least a first-time inoculation. So what have we been doing at the health department since we've seen you? Well, we've been to the farm. We did go twice to one of the local farms here and worked with UNCP as well as our CCTO group, emergency management, and the Spanish group from UNCP actually canceled class in their Spanish department, and 4 instructors and about 10 students came to help with interpretation there. We've got about 4 students that are going to be on break and 2 of the instructors that are coming back to go with us on June the 1st and June the 8th. It's a pretty phenomenal experience. During that event, we were able to use our new tent. Since we were at one of the blueberry farms and the tent was blue, we called it the Blueberry Hut. But that's the one that does have air conditioning and heat, and the air conditioning did work. It wasn't quite as easy to put up. Mr. Dallas can tell you more about that, is what we thought it would be. What was supposed to take about 45 minutes took all day. But it did work very nicely. We were able to get that tent with COVID funds, and now when we have, if it were to have rained that day, and it ended up being the hottest day of the year at the time, but if it were to have rained or it was to be inclement weather, we will be safe inside. We also have started doing walk-ins, and on some days we have none. And when I left and checked with them around 2 o'clock today, we had 12 walk-ins. We are still taking appointments, and we'll give preference to the appointments. Right now, we were still giving Moderna. The hospital is giving the Pfizer vaccine and is offering that to the 12-year-old and up at specific times. We currently do not have Johnson & Johnson available at the health department, but Johnson & Johnson is available at CVS, Walgreens, and Walmart.
What are you giving at the farms? The 2 shots?
Moderna.
I think they would send Johnson & Johnson down here.
It was closed because of that phase when it was, when they stopped it for a little bit, it was a little bit difficult to get it here.
Is there any way to track these people to give the first shot to? Okay.
The availability of the vaccine, is plenty of it available?
There is plenty of
So
availability.
anybody, so it's accessible for anyone to get it?
Oh, yes, sir. And right now, we're planning for the vaccine team. We have planned now to have people at the health department so that we could do walk-ins, as well as sending a nurse and at least one of the registration folks, because we have to put it into the system as well, into the state system. We had a call from White Lake. We were already planning this, but a call today, and they suggested that maybe we go over to the water festival, and we have received permission from the fire department, and we're going to be there on Friday afternoon. We're going to go at least one time to each area in the county, and next week we're going to Bladenboro on Monday.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Did he say that the Pfizer vaccine was available for 12-year-olds and up at the hospital?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, he had to keep going in and out. I want to make sure I had That's correct. Thank you.
And I believe
I have
specifically
one
in urgent
question.
care.
Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead.
Yes, ma'am.
Dr. Dunn, are they available every day at the health department?
Yes,
Or
ma'am.
walk-in?
Yes, ma'am. 8:30 to 5.
Time?
8:30 to
And
5.
what vaccine?
Moderna.
Okay, thank you.
The state has 11 of those ultra-cold freezers that they're going to give to some local, or some counties. One of the questions they asked in the application were, have you been affected by a hurricane or a major flood? And we certainly meet that one. So we're gonna apply for it and see what happens. If we get one of those, we'll be able to store some more. It also is anticipated that Pfizer right now, once you take it out of the freezer and you put it in the refrigerator, only has a 5-day refrigerator life. It's anticipated in the next 30 days that that's gonna go to 30 days, which will also help us be able to do some Pfizer.
Dr. Duncan, did you see a big slowdown in the trend of people going to get a shot?
Absolutely.
Now, how do you feel about that as far as your perception of the outcome as far as increasing the numbers? 'Cause even though our numbers are good compared to a lot of counties, I know you're probably not satisfied. I don't think that's where any of us want to go at that small number, and to improve that, what would be your expectations on how we could do it?
Well, it's our firm belief at the health department that if we can vaccinate one person today, that's one person more than we had yesterday. And now we don't have to worry because of the supply. Before, when we opened the dose, we tried very hard not to waste a dose. And we would, if we had somebody come in at the end of the day, we wouldn't open that one vial, we'd wait because we didn't want to waste the doses. And the state has given us permission now that we don't have to do that. There's enough vaccine. Again, we try not to waste any because you think about India, and I so wish that they had the vaccine that we do. But it's very important that we inoculate as many people as will take that vaccine, and we're prepared to do that.
Now, just one reason why I asked, as far as running that retail business, we still have a lot of people coming in with the mask and just having conversations. A lot of times I ask them, well, if they have a shot. And they sort of look at you funny why you don't have one on. Just a little confusing.
It is confusing.
A lot of people don't want them, and
It's-
that's the challenge.
And we have everybody, we meet and see, would you like a vaccine? Please come in, and people that just come in through the health department now for a TB skin test or for pregnancy, whatever, we are offering the vaccine too.
Well, maybe going in the community, step up the numbers.
And we're gonna go to each one. Looking at the fire departments, because we think that's where people will feel comfortable coming and it would be safe for us.
You mentioned 12 and up. Are we having many adolescents take the shot?
I don't know what the hospital has given, but we had about 6 calls at the health department.
Is there with all due respect, is there a purpose of giving a vaccine to a child knowing they have almost no chance of perishing from the virus?
Well, there's that one chance that you could perish from that virus, and that would help. It's just like the flu vaccine or any other vaccine. We certainly don't want the risk. And there is some thought too, once you get the vaccine, then you don't have to quarantine. After 2 weeks post full vaccination, you do not have to quarantine.
We're hearing a lot more on the news of people that have been vaccinated that are testing positive, people that have tested positive for COVID and supposedly have the antibodies, but yet they're testing positive again. So I think there's,
The only thing I can say about this one was my first day, I had a call yesterday where a family that went down and they had a big family gathering. And I didn't think children was so receptive to it, but it's 10 children that have been tested positive for COVID yesterday. That was at the family gathering. So it's contagious. What's going to happen? I don't know. 10 of the kids tested positive also with COVID yesterday. So it's
She's been killed.
And the vaccine is not 100% effective. You know, early on, we knew it was only 90 to 95% effective for Pfizer and Moderna, and about 75% for J&J. So it means that your risk is less when you are vaccinated, and also that your symptoms, if you were to become infected with COVID, would be less as well.
And Terry, do y'all hear anything from like school systems? I know some of the, large scale or UNC system, they've talked about having vaccine proof. Do y'all get any notifications about that? Or is that still in the works, the discussion about it?
Currently, we know that Duke is going to require vaccination when they go back to school in the fall. The UNC system has not seen it.
I know they,
As a pastor, a lot of, folks call and ask me for my opinion. I'm trying not to give them too many opinions. Well, there's quite a few of our young ladies that are either expecting or that's in their near future, they would like to be expecting, are very, very hesitant.
We actually are encouraging people that are pregnant to take the vaccine because it's been proven that the antibodies are given to the newborn and would protect them as well. And there's been no scientific evidence today that it would affect fertility in the future for either males or females.
As far as the age group between 12 to 18, is there one vaccine that's preferred over the other?
Well, Pfizer's the
The reason
only one.
Well, the reason I was asking, if you're coming to Bladenburg, you just gonna have Moderna.
Yes, sir.
Can't out our
Well, they will be in school on the day that we come.
So the hospital, is it the day, the first day they started at 12?
I think they started Friday.
Okay. We can get the numbers from Stephen if we need. Okay. Thank you for everything. Department of Social Service, Ms. Vicki Smith, Director.
Good evening. I'm here this evening for consideration of approving a hosting and maintenance agreement with Information Inc. regarding our reception application. This is for our front desk operations. We operate that under our AS400 platform that is going out of existence for that area June 30th. So we have reached out to find a software that would work for us. We have chosen Information Inc. based on the fact that they are developed specifically for DSSs. There are currently in 28 DSSs across the state.
Motion by Mr. Britt. Second by.
Motion to approve. Second.
Second by Mr. Bullock. Any discussion? This money is in the budget.
Mr. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Gillespie?
Yes.
Mr. Britt?
Yes.
Mr. Cogdell?
Yes.
Dr. Ellis?
Yes.
Mr. Hester?
Yes.
Mr. McGill?
Yes.
Dr. Mungowens?
Yes.
Mr. Bullock?
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Advisory Board appointment, Bay Tree Lake Fire Department, Roof Gun Board. Need one name. Anybody have a name?
What the name provided? There's one recommended on there. Four docs that come up.
Who was it, Ms. Lee? Anybody know?
Lennox Carlson.
No, let's pass it. Wait,
I'm
let's
sorry.
replace that. Something that email.
I don't remember.
Reappoint Leonard Harris.
You can't.
I need for Mr. Warren,
There you go.
Mr. Warren Holder.
Yeah.
But I thought,
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Gillespie. Any discussion? Ms. Marie?
Mr. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Gillespie?
Yes.
Mr. Britt?
Yes.
Mr. Cogdell?
Yes.
Dr. Ellis?
Yes.
Mr. Hester?
Yes.
Mr. McGill,
Yes.
Dr. McGoins,
Yes.
Mr. Bullock,
Yes.
Okay. Bay Tree Lake Fire District Committee, was he also?
Yes, I think it was. One order, a motion.
Motion by Dr. Ofield Moon, going second by Mr. Gillespie. Any discussion? That's correct.
Mr. Peterson,
Yes.
Mr. Gillespie,
Yes.
Mr. Britt,
Yes.
Mr. Cogdale,
Yes.
Dr. Ellis.
Yes.
Mr. Hester,
Yes.
Mr. McGill,
Yes.
Dr. Mungowens,
Yes.
Mr. Bullock,
Yes.
Entertain a motion to reappoint, Dean on the,
Motion to approve.
motion by Mr. Hester, second by Mr. McGill.
Second.
Any discussion?
Mr. Peterson,
Yes.
Mr. Gillespie,
Yes.
Mr. Britt,
Yes.
Mr. Cogdale,
Yes.
Dr. Ellis.
Yes.
Mr. Hester,
Yes.
Mr. McGill,
Yes.
Dr. Mungowens,
Yes.
Mr. Bullock,
Yes.
For the June, advisory board appointments for June the 21st, there's 17 advisory boards. Got 2 weeks to do your homework. Mr. Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to review the calendar with you for the remainder of the month. And point out that tomorrow evening at 6 p.m., the Elizabeth White Lake Area Chamber will have a meeting at the Grand Regal in Golston's Beach of Preview at White Lake. Also, tomorrow evening at 6:30 p.m. at Bladen Community College, the Substance Use Disorder Task Force will meet in the auditorium there.
Greg.
Yes, sir.
Can you call, send a note to the chamber and ask them if they can not do it when the other task force meets, or we don't need to meet? I mean, that's too important to have 2 things like that on the same time, because there's no way to do both.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. The White Lake Water Festival is this weekend, Friday and Saturday. Next Monday through Thursday is the County Assembly Week virtual events will take place. Offices will be closed Monday the 31st, and of course, the Memorial Day holiday. Moving over to the month of June, on Thursday the 3rd at 12 noon, the JCPC meeting will be held. That's Monday night, sir. On Monday the 7th at 8 a.m., there's a prayer service here. The board meets that evening at 6:30. And we have several public hearings scheduled that evening. On Monday the 14th at 5 p.m., the Health and Human Services Advisory Board meets at the Health Department. On Tuesday the 15th, that needs to be changed probably to the 22nd. I think, Mr. Chairman, aren't we moving to the 3rd?
That is the 3rd.
That is the 3rd, okay. I went, it's close to, okay, the 6:30 that evening, the Substance Use Disorder Task Force will meet at the auditorium at the community college. And on Monday, the 21st, at 6:30, the board has regular scheduled meeting.
Mr. Martin, JCPCT is gonna meet at the Health Department.
At the health department, okay, thank you.
Mr. Martin.
All right, moving on to D. I wanted to just be sure that you all as commissioners know, and the meeting knows that there's a new economic broadband benefit program that provides up to $50 per month off of a household's internet bill. And there are several criteria for eligibility, but one that may apply to a wide range of families here in Bladen County is the fact that if a member of the family receives benefits under the free and reduced price school lunch program, then they're eligible, and that applies to all of the
Every kid in
Bladen
Bladen
County population. So that's a good opportunity for folks to try to take advantage of. So I just wanted to bring that.
So, does the media have that correspondence?
Board docs.
Yeah, I mean, okay. I mean, we need you to help us get it out, please. That's what I was, you can go back to sleep now.
Moving to item C, you all, many of you recall that Bladen and 75 other counties, as well as 8 municipalities, have filed lawsuits related to the opioid crisis. And now a memorandum of agreement has been developed with counties and the Department of Justice. And counties are being encouraged to sign on to this MOA. And so we'd like to ask you all to consider doing that at our next meeting. A settlement fund that would be established, and the way the money will be divvied up is really favorable for local governments. So just to kind of give you a brief overview, 15% of the funds would be directed to the state, and the General Assembly would have authority to appropriate those funds. 80% would be appropriated to local governments, including all 100 counties plus 17 municipalities. And a formula has been developed by attorneys representing local governments in this national litigation. And then an additional 5% would go into an incentive fund for any county and any municipality in that county receiving settlement funds, in which the county itself and every municipality with at least 30,000 residents in the county signs the North Carolina MOA. So all counties need to sign this MOA in order for the state to benefit most. So if you have any questions between now and there have been a number of Zoom meetings hosted by the association in recent weeks about this, and so a number of counties are beginning to sign on, so I just wanted to bring that to your attention. And we'll plan to have it on the agenda for our next meeting.
What would you like to wait, Mr. Marsh, if I may ask?
Well, I wasn't sure how familiar you all were. I didn't know. I mean, it can be.
Well, the information's been coming to us, though.
Okay. Are you
It's gonna
receiving
need all counties.
straight from the association? Okay. Yeah, I thought you were. I just want to be sure.
And it needs all counties.
Right.
And not getting any chairman of your business, I can just vote on it now, because it's a needed thing, and they want it done quicker. If it's all right with you, Mr. Chairman.
I get the war, do what I want to, but it's not action item, Mr. Warren, so.
Talking about money.
I mean, the national settlement.
How soon does it need to be?
Well, the state's encouraging counties to go ahead and begin to adopt it, but the national settlement hasn't taken place yet. So in terms of, it's not like the money's going to start flowing here soon. But it's up to you all.
Can we just, so if the.
I mean, if you all determine it's something you all want to do, I mean, it's not on.
I mean, it's not an action item, can we take action on it or not? Don't we have policy that?
Yeah, I mean, we can do it. It'd be, I mean, in terms of the policy, it would be better to hold off, unless you all have a.
But we have done.
Strong. Yeah, if you have a strong desire to do it, then you can.
Can you bring it back? Can we put it on the agenda for the next meeting? Let's do it for the next 2 weeks.
That went up with our.
We'd like to lay it on table 2 weeks and bring it back next meeting.
Individuals delegation wish to address the commissioners. Mr. Bullock, your turn, you up.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I'd like to talk about myself. First of all, I had a colonoscopy done on Tuesday of last week, and had a serious setback with internal bleeding. And I want to publicly thank Wayne Barnes and Elizabeth Brown of Bladen EMS. They picked me up at East Bladen High School, transferred me to BCH, transported me to BCH, and then transported me to Kitchener Valley and Fayetteville. So I was hospitalized from Tuesday to Thursday of last week, and I want to personally thank those two EMS personnel. They did a great job with my condition. Also, I would like to thank the clerk, county manager, and other commissioners who contacted me regarding my condition. And I want to say thank you to everyone who had anything to say or like a prayer or anything. I appreciate what you've done. The other thing I wanted to mention was that I received some employee concerns, and I'd like to Mr. Martin to check on the possibility of this. So these are allegations that some of the management personnel at the Department of Agent and BART, they're very negative towards the employees. Matter of fact, they said one employee quit because of the management's unprofessional and very negative action. These are all allegations. They said the same thing about the transportation operator, that she is negative, hateful, nasty, and intolerable. So I asked Mr. Martin, requesting him to just check into this. Then again, it might be just the allegation, but have asked Mr. Martin to check into this and kind of get back with us, let us know what's going on. Again, I thank all of you who set up your prayers on my behalf. I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Peters, can I ask a question while we all sitting here, just to clear up something? I had something while we talking about this relationships and workforce, is I've had some people, like you say, sometimes like you talking about this, when you hear people talking, and I don't like getting involved with the employee management conflict. I don't like doing that. And some of them have called me saying that they feel sometimes, they ask why aren't we more involved with certain things going on. And I said that to me is somewhat of a conflict, because if I come to you and do something, talk with you about something, then it kind of puts me where it's unethical for me to try to make a decision, because I've made a predetermination decision on something. But what I'm saying is that, could you just want to look at, I read the thing we got, the duties of a commissioner. I read a little bit today. And I'm trying to find out, is it unethical for us to go in and approach employees as a commissioner on the work site, where they're at? I don't want Ms. Lisa run her staff, Lisa runs hers. I don't like circumventing staff. I'd rather come to you. And I'm trying to figure out what is the proper channel that we need to use when we run into those kind of situations. Is it something that we can involve ourselves internally with? Or should we stay out of it? Should we report to you? What is the procedure with that? That's all I'm asking. What's the ruling on that? How should we as a board function when we need to ask a decision, or an employee calls me and have a concern? How should that issue be sent up the channel? Should it come to you? Should I go to the department head? Should I go to the supervisor? How does that need to be channeled?
The first thing you need to do is chain of command, and that's Mr. Greg Martin. He's the county manager, and then Greg should follow up with you.
I
You have no business calling a director or an employee without going through Mr. Martin. Mr. Martin, that's what we'll pay Mr. Martin for.
Okay, but what I'm saying, Charles, is...
Well, you asked, that's the
So
direction.
here's the question I'm asking, this specifically. If I see Nate, and he's looking for something, I said, Nate, you need to get something done with some employees, or you need to get some money, and you want to get something. Is it ethical for me to come in here at the board and say, oh, they need this, and without talking to you? Who do I need to talk to about his concerns?
I just told you.
But I'm saying...
He is the chain of command.
So that's the way the system is supposed to work.
He is the chain of command.
So
He's the top of the food chain.
So what I'm saying, I shouldn't go in. My question is, I shouldn't interfere with Miss Vicky's staff.
You should always give the county manager an opportunity to solve your problems or to research and get back with you. And there's nothing wrong with following back up with him if you have to, but you should go to Mr. Martin on anything.
So if I got I just want to make sure now, if I got a concern, who do I need to go see? That's all I want to make sure now.
Mr. Chairman,
Everybody follows the same rules.
And it is really a cool, yes, I appreciate your question, first of all. But second, to follow up on Mr. Peterson's comment, I've certainly recognized that, we're in a small community, folks know most of the employees and the commissioners and that type of thing, so there's going to be conversations, and I fully recognize that. But if it's something that there's any way that I could be a positive influence on, or if it's information that will be helpful, then I always appreciate you calling, and you're good about that. So,
now, the reason I'm bringing this question up, I had someone call me to want to have a conversation with me, and I was reluctant to have the conversation because I didn't want it to be unethical for me to have the conversation with him about an employee matter. And I'm asking, I just need to turn them down. We all need to turn them down.
No, if someone comes to you, you talk to them, and then your next step is to Mr. Martin.
And
there's nothing wrong with talking to the employee or the citizen. So you said, when they talk to you, you should go directly to Mr. Martin, not to.
And I'll
Lisa
talk with our,
Goldberg.
Tyshell Jones, our human resources.
Yeah, you can talk to people.
We'll try to address it the best way.
I'm just trying to make sure that if I come in, and if it's something that one of the department heads wants, and it's a conversation I've had with them, I don't want it to be a conflict, unethical for me to express their desires. That's what I'm asking, that's all.
We
That's what we should do.
bringing it here publicly, even the names tonight and the situations tonight were even said it may be accusation. Well, now it's sort of public record, those accusations. That would have been better probably to have gone.
It should have went to Mr. Martin.
Before it got.
Before it come public.
Yes, sir.
I want to make sure we all follow the same rules, that's all. That's all.
I have a comment to ask, or a question. So, at the same time, commissioners, should they be going to different departments and talking, I mean, not learning, but to go to those different departments, day to day, and in and out, different places, and then gather information or have a conversation, but only that one commissioner has that information? Is that fair or ethical? Mr. Martin, what do you think? Should be coming to you, or you should be going to one going to those departments?
You know what, there's nothing
No,
wrong.
we just went through this.
There's nothing wrong with an employee talking to a commissioner, and there's nothing wrong with a commissioner knowing something that you don't know, or you know something that I don't know. But before it's brought to the public, it should go to Mr. Martin. If you've got a concern about a commissioner, go to Mr. Martin. He'll talk to that commissioner. It shouldn't come out on the public forum the first time you hear about it.
Mr. Chairman, that's why I asked for a closed session, because I didn't think it should be.
Dr. Bullock, Mr. Bullock, I cannot go in closed session for that. I would have went in there if I could have. It's not a closed session item. I told you that earlier. You can't go in there and just generally discuss things.
Mr. Chairman, repeat what you said because your internet broke up.
I'm saying, like I told you a while ago, that's not a closed item agenda. You cannot go in closed session to discuss generality about employees or personnel. I didn't know you were going to say what you said. And you should have had the courtesy to go to Mr. Martin, is what I'm saying.
Mr. Chairman, all we doing is clear the air, so that's what I know is.
Clear the air, give Mr. Martin a chance.
That's what I'm saying, I'm trying to
do it.
clear the air on the whole situation, so if someone comes to me and says, I spoke with Rodney about something, I spoke to Mrs. Elizabeth about something, do we all speak to him, or do we take the information, or do we just say, let's go with this gentleman here? Which way does that information flow? That's the only thing I'm asking.
And
That's what I'm trying to make sure.
And in all transparency, Mr. Trogdale, you did that very thing on that same matter.
That's what I'm saying, that's
Yeah,
what
I
I'm letting
appreciate
flow.
that, because that's
That's the way the information is supposed to flow, because
yes.
I've seen the time that he would get in closed session, and the lawyers would say, if you had a conversation, as an attorney over there, if I had a predisposition to something, then ethically, I shouldn't be making a decision on it, because I've already had a predetermined decision what I'm doing with it.
We can't lock ourselves in our homes and not know anything going on in the community. I think it depends on the weight of the matter.
That's what I'm saying.
When it comes to personnel,
And I recognize that.
that's a whole nother
That's all I'm
ballgame.
saying, I'm just trying to make sure everybody.
I think that comment was made when there was lawsuits, Mr. Cocktail.
No, I'm saying,
And
I'm
that
make
makes
sure.
sense, like night and day. If it's a lawsuit, you know they're gonna sue us, then you probably should just refer them to Mr. Martin.
That's what I'm trying to say, make sure it goes.
Any other, comments from commissioners? Entertain a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Mr. Cameron, second by Mr. Britt. Any discussion, Ms. Marie?
Mr. Peterson.
Yes.
Mr. Gillespie.
Yes.
Mr. Britt.
Yes.
Mr. Cogdale.
Yeah.
Dr. Ellis.
Yes.
Mr. Hester.
Yes.
Mr. McGill.
Yes.
Dr. Mungowens.
Yes.
Mr. Bullock.
Yes.
Just for the survey.
Here we are.
we have two or three officers.